Morning, everybody. Hope all is well. Before I get started with our little update and mini lesson here, I wanted to go over some reminders for our class, remote learning, and upcoming things. First, remember to email me questions. Any questions you have about assignments, if you find the work difficult, if you're not syncing, email me any questions you have. That's the best way for me to get back to you during the office hours that I posted on that spreadsheet. Today's assignment, I sent out a reminder through Remind that today is simply a catch-up day. On the Quizlet, you're going to study President Washington and President Adams. I'll talk more about the Quizlet in a little bit, but there's a reminder. My Quizlet login name is Mr. Gates 22, no periods, no spaces. This week I want to do a take-home quiz. Tomorrow I'm going to get everybody signed up for Castle Learning. I'll send home multiple choice questions. You'll be able to do that at home. So today's a bit of a review day. I want you guys to look over the Quizlet for President Washington and President Adams. Use the flashcards, use the practice test, multiple choice, true, false. Use the matching game, use the other games, and just spend 20 or 30 minutes reviewing President Washington and President Adams on there. If you have any other questions about any of the technology stuff, please email me. Now I'm going to go over yesterday's lesson. John Adams, he was elected president in 1796. He's our second president. And I always begin John Adams by explaining that he had a short presidency, and because of that, he's a short unit. George Washington was 2 weeks long. A lot of information in there. George Washington was a two-term president. Tons of, first actions as our first president. John Adams comes in, replacing George Washington. He's elected in 1796. It's the first presidency where the election had two candidates from two different political parties running against each other. The Federalist candidate was John Adams, who eventually wins that election. The anti-Federalist candidate was Thomas Jefferson. Jefferson finishes second in that election and becomes Adams' vice president. That's how they used to choose vice president under the original Constitution. So those two begin political rivalry and political disagreement from the beginning of that election and campaign right through Thomas Jefferson's presidency. Jefferson will go on to become our country's third president. But Adams is a short president, not height-wise. He was short height-wise too, but in term of office, because he does not get reelected in 1800. Jefferson winds up beating Adams in 1800. There was a lot of controversy during Adams' presidency. That's what your lesson yesterday focused on. Some of the controversy stemmed with problems between the United States and France during the 1790s. The two countries came very close to war. So during Adams' presidency, he sends a group of diplomats, American ambassadors, to France to talk to the French government. And when they arrive in France, the French government does not meet with them face to face. Instead offers them a bribe. If you want to speak to our government, you must pay us money. The Americans were upset about this and returned back home and reported this to the president and to the United States federal government. This event became known as the XYZ affair. X, Y, and Z were the nicknames, if you will, of the three French secret agents that offered the bribe to the American diplomats that had been sent to France. So that kind of escalated the problems between France and the United States and brought us closer to war. Because of those problems between France and the United States, there was a lot of fear of foreigners coming into the United States. So a series of laws were passed by the Federalists. Remember, John Adams was a Federalist, and quite a few of the members of Congress during this time period were Federalists as well. They passed a series of laws called the Alien and Sedition Acts. Those laws were similar to controversial laws that you hear talked about today. Number one, it limited the ability for immigrants to come into the United States from those countries that we were having problems with. It also limited the rights of those immigrants coming into the United States. It made it harder for a recent immigrant to get the right to vote. It made it difficult if you were caught bad-mouthing the United States government. It made it easier for the government to punish you or to fine you. Remember, Adams is a federalist. He wants a stronger federal government. These laws, the Alien and Sedition Acts, gave power to the federal government to keep an eye on people that they saw as rivals or threats. So Adams, his presidency is really stemmed by this controversy. The Alien and Sedition Act really upset the Anti-Federalists and Vice President Jefferson, and they begin their campaign to try to beat Adams in the election right away. And Adams' presidency was a disappointment. He was a very smart guy, a founding father. He helped write the Declaration of Independence. He was Washington's vice president. He was not a good president. He gets beat in the election of 1800. Thomas Jefferson steps in as our third president, and he becomes the first new political party to take over the office. And Jefferson's on Mount Rushmore. We'll talk more about Jefferson towards the end of the week. I'm going to continue to post little mini lessons like this on either YouTube or through apps like Google Meets or Google Hangouts. Once I get my tech game a little stronger, we'll also do some live lessons on those apps. Hopefully this is helpful. Any questions, anything interesting, anything you want to throw in about this topic, John Adams, even George Washington, while you were reviewing the Quizlet, please email me with questions. I like hearing from you guys. I've had a few emails, not enough. And make sure you're catching up on work that I sent over the last 3 days. You had lessons on OneNote from Friday and yesterday. The Flipgrid video also. So go back, if you're just reading these reminders for the first time, go back and make sure that you're keeping up on those lessons as well. All right, so I enjoyed this. Hopefully you guys did too. I will be back in touch tomorrow with information about signing up for Castle Learning, getting us ready for